Good stuff. I'm going to start, and we're talking about inflation a little bit. Unemployment, I think we did a really thorough job with, and I think you guys should be able to answer all those questions on the quiz. Let's go on to inflation. So, usually not the biggest thing that we worry about, right, is inflation. We don't usually look at things and really notice that prices are going up so much that it bothers us. And, you know, that's not true all over the world, right? Some places in the world have a lot of inflation, but there's also a big issue in this world right now with among developed countries where there's been too little inflation. Like years and years of no inflation. You think, well, why is that a problem? Because if you think about it, let's just say you're building a product, and at the end of this product in the United States, there's sort of this built-in, well, we know prices are going to be, 3% higher a year from now, or 1.5% higher, 6 months from now, right? We know that the prices are going up. So if we build a car for $20,000, we know that the prices are going to go up in the future, and people will be willing to pay that because prices are going up. But if you're in a country where prices are actually going down, your building costs could actually be higher than your ending price. So your costs are different than are lower or higher than your price, and obviously that's a bad thing. So it goes all, we're going to look like all over the world on this one and kind of look at different comparisons. I'm going to show you the countries that are doing the absolute worst, like unbelievable inflation. And then there's others that are just like, would love to have some. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Ideally, inflation is, ideally what you want, or what a society wants, is stable inflation. And, in the United States, we're looking for a goal of between 2 and 3%. That's what we like. 2 to 3% inflation is a good goal. And that's kind of where we've been at. So just look at this as just the last few years here. It's like right now the inflation rate's 1.9, 2.1, 2.1. So it's inflation has been really steady and really low in the U.S. for a while. So you don't even think about it. There's not too many times where you've been lying up in the middle of the night going, oh my gosh, the inflation rate, this is good. What am I going to do tomorrow if the prices go up by 2%? And it just doesn't happen. Now we pay attention to gas prices, right? Because they fluctuate a little bit. But generally speaking, we don't really have a big problem with inflation in this country, okay? Especially when you look at how it's measured. So how is it measured? Well, we use something called the Consumer Price Index, called the CPI, and that's the best measure that we have right now, the most popular. I don't know if it's the best. The Federal Reserve Bank follows another one of these that I'll go in a second. But this is the one that when you hear about inflation in the news, what they're talking about is Consumer Price Index. And what the Consumer Price Index is it looks at what's called a market basket of goods. And they look at this same market basket of goods in 40 different cities in the country. So they go and they literally will go and they'll say, go to stores in San Francisco, and go to stores in Charlotte, and go to stores in Denver, and go to stores in Atlanta, and go to stores in Chicago, and New York, and Philly, and everywhere, right? So they're going to these different places, and they're looking, this is the price. This is the price of this good. And then they'll look at housing prices, and they'll look at medical care prices, and they'll look at automobile prices, and insurance prices. They look at all these goods, and they compare them in different cities around the country. And so what the thing is, they compare the same goods as they used to do, right? So this has been going on for a long time. So they're using goods that have been around for a long time. And so that's the good thing is there's consistency in the way they measure it. Okay, so let's say it's a dozen eggs, right? A dozen eggs now and a dozen eggs 30 years ago, pretty much the same product. Let's say it's a computer. Computer now versus a computer 30 years ago. Is it the same product?
No.
Or television. Is a television now the same as a product of the same as it was 30 years ago? No. Okay, so they have a little trouble with that, and that's where the other indices adjust, right? So the CPI, well, while it's the most popular, there are some flaws to it. Okay, so this is the one that's measured here is the CPI, right? And it's, so what they do, like I said, they literally, when I say they, I mean the department, it's called the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and department, it's under the Department of the Census. Okay, so what they do is the Bureau of Labor Statistics will have people, full-time people who do this. They make this, they measure these things, right? And then they come up with these numbers. Here's the, over the years, look at this is the CPI over the years. Interestingly, so since about 1991, we've been really consistent. This is 3% here. 3%, anything above 3% is kind of doesn't happen very much, but even if you look at that 1 year, we've been below 3% since about 1982, right? 1 year above it, and then every other year or so. We've had really consistent inflation for, you know, what any economy say since about 1988. That's kind of our measure, because that's something, what happened around this time, after that, it got really smooth. Okay, so, and this is a time, so it's been pretty consistent for like 30 years. And that's why you don't worry about it very much. What happened here?
Is that Vietnam?
That was
That was
1979.
I can't see the
1978.
can't see the years on that. So.
Was that all in
It's 78.
Is that all prices?
Yeah, 2 oil prices, right? We had the oil prices of 1973, 74, then another oil price of 78, 79, or 79, 80. In 79, 80, that was the year when Iran and Iraq, like there was a problem with us and Iran. They took some hostages, and like 400 hostages from, and really just the Middle East it's always a disaster. But it was just, we were in the middle of that disaster. And so what they did is they basically stopped selling oil to the United States, took it off of the market, basically, right? And then we had this political turmoil going on with them holding our citizens hostage. President Carter went in and tried to get these people out at night, and so he tried to save the hostages at night, and it failed, because when the helicopters hit the sand went up into the blades, and the whole operation literally blew up. And so that was an awful time for our country in terms of lots of things. But it caused inflation to be really high, because oil is one of the main things that is behind inflation. Because everything is affected by oil, right? Production is affected by oil, gas prices are affected by oil, everything's affected by oil. So when oil prices go up, inflation goes up. And that's what happened here. Okay? And so 73, 74 was oil embargo, and then this was that story I just told you with political problems. But that really, take away the supply side, we call supply side shocks, right? Because oil is a supply side, it isn't part of producing a good, so it's called supply side. So take away the supply side shocks, and we're pretty consistent for a long time. Okay? So that is everybody okay so far with that? All right. So what are the measures of inflation? I'm going to skip down for a second and just show you how it's measured first, and then we'll go back and we'll look at it. All right, so let's go all the way down here. Now a lot of stuff here. Okay, and this is basically how it would be done. Okay, you would say, what do people spend their money on? And about 35% of the money that people spend is on their housing. So I'm just putting this, if you've looked at your own personal situation, say, okay, I spend money on house, I spend money on utilities, I spend money on my car, I spend money on insurance, entertainment, electronic goods, and food. And so what this index does is it says, okay, you bought the same food in 2017 as you did in 2018. You bought the same electronic goods in 2017 as you did in 2018. And every one of these is the same product, right? So I went to the movie, 7 times here, and it cost me $70. I went 7 times here, and it cost me $82. right? So it's, you can look right across every product and assume that they're always gonna be the same product. And so then all you're looking at is what's the price difference between the 2 years. So the way we would do this is you'd add up the, anybody have these up yet? Anybody kind of ahead of me? Unfortunately not. Alright, so you just go and you add up all these numbers here, and you come up with some number. Let's just say 3,200 or something. If somebody gets it, they can. Okay, so you have that number, and that would be in 2017. The number would be X amount. In 2018, the number would be, this other amount. So just add up all these, put the number down here, add up all those, and put the number there. And the reason we're using those products is because those are the products that consumers spend money on. That's what's called consumer price index. Give me some answers here. What was the number in 2017?
3381.
3381, thank you. And what was the number in 2018?
3620.
3620. So here's how you would do it. You would take, remember, whenever you're doing growth rates, because all we're calculating here is the inflation rate. And it's going to be 2018's number over 2017's number, and then subtract 1, just like we did with the GDP growth rate. So that means we're going to look at 3620 divided by 3381, and then subtract 1, and that gives us our inflation rate. Okay, so what would that be?
7%.
7%? Awesome. So it comes out to about 3.07, which is 7%. That's how it's done. Okay, so now you know where the numbers come from, and you know that's how they do it, because they weight it based on what we spend our money on. If we, and so everything is basically, so food, there's, we spend X amount of our, this percentage of our money on food, this is percentage on electronic goods, et cetera, right? Housing and food are obviously the biggest ones for us. And then you have this, some choice on a lot of these too. Okay, so here we go. We've gone through all these, went through why, and this is called the Consumer Price Index. And the Consumer Price Index, this would be, these are the numbers, and they're all compared to base years. So with a Consumer Price Index, we're always comparing to a base year. And so in this one here, you can see up there, I think it says it somewhere on here, the base year is like, it's like really bouncy.
Like 1942.
Yeah, well this is, this is the, base year would be like 100. So it's typically, there it is. The index is 1982. So 1982 is the base year, 82, 83. That means what cost $100 in 1982 costs $100 in 1982. Right? And so you compare that to every other year. And so you get all the way to the end here, and you're saying this number, the current number, is about 252. So let me write that down. So the 1982 number, so in 1982, it was 100, maybe 83, it doesn't matter, we'll go 83. And then in 2018, the number was 252. So what does that mean? How would you interpret that? Right. Yeah, so what cost $100 in 1982 cost $252 today. That sounds about right, huh? Okay. Now the worst one, it's worse when you look at something called the medical price index, which just includes medical prices. Look at this one. So if you look at medical price index, still have the 1982 base. So what cost $100 in 1982 with medical prices cost, this is the number right up there, is like, I think it's like 484. So it's 400, we'll leave this one, 485-ish. So what cost $100 then now costs $485. So So the medical prices have gone up at a much faster pace than the, overall prices. And what else? What are the goods that you might, buy have gone up a little bit more than the average thing?
Yeah.
Perfect, that's the answer I was looking for. Tuition, right? So if you look at, there's actually if you looked at tuition and how much it's gone up, it would come up probably right about like that. Way more, way more than normal goods, right? The average good. Tuition's been going up and up and up too. Right? And so it really hurts, right? If you're buying medical goods and you're buying tuition, then you're going to get hit harder than if you're buying electronics and food. Food and electronics have been pretty stable. Apparel. What about apparel? What do you think has happened with apparel? Yeah, apparel prices have been really low. Really low. I mean, they're because not only international trade, but because we have so many alternatives now with all these companies selling secondhand stuff, right? So the apparel prices have not risen by as much as, let's say, medical or tuition. And electronic prices have not risen by as much either. In fact, they've gone down with the same good. Computers and et cetera. So you don't have, just because one thing's going up doesn't mean everything's going up. This is generally speaking, overall, right? It's not everything's gone up in price or everything's gone down in price. This is that on average, if you look at these same market basket of goods, on average, they've gone up. And that's why when I did that this year compared to when I just showed you those 2 years, I showed you that that some of the prices actually went down from year to year. But still, we have overall inflation. Yeah.
With like technology, when they're doing the comparison, are they buying like the exact same item from year to year? Because technology goes through like a 6-month cycle where you're losing like 30-40% of the value.
Yes and yes, right? Yes, and it's a noted flaw. Yep. And that's why they've gone more toward these other types. And I'm not going to go through them all, but but they've done something called the CPE, which is that one right there, personal consumption expenditures, and that does make the adjustment for goods used every year. So that you don't have to go into the deep, but that's how that works. Producer prices just measures the prices of inputs. Right, so in there you have labor and you have raw materials and things like that. And typically though, producer price index is what's called a lead indicator. It's usually if producer prices go up, in other words, if it costs more to make the good, what's going to happen to consumer prices? They're going to go up as well. So they're positively related. And usually it's a lag of about 6 months. So if it costs more to make something now, then 6 months from now, that price is going to be pushed onto the consumer. That's called the producer price index. Producer prices have been really low. We've got almost no inflation with producer prices. They've just been really under control. So then people say, well, producer prices are like this, and consumer prices are going like this, then how does that happen? And the answer is, profits are going up. Okay? Because if producers aren't paying as much to make the goods, and we're paying more, somebody's making that money, and it's not us. So it's got to be the producers that are making that money. Okay, so this next one, just real quick, this is the housing prices. And so this is called the Case-Shiller Index. This measures housing prices. So what happened here is if you measure it like over time, but housing prices were going up and up and up until 2005, and then what? It's just unbelievable drop. I mean, unbelievable that it went down. Housing prices went down and down and down. And so that's not an easy thing, right? I mean, that means you buy a house at its peak for $200,000 and it goes down by 20%, and then it goes down by 20% again. So, you're down to $120,000 for a house that you paid $200,000 for. And then you say, all right, well, the bad part is most people owe more than that. And when they owe more, it's called being upside down in the house. It's like we are on all of our cars, right? We're all upside down in our cars. And if you ever buy a car with a new car with cash, in other words, you don't pay for it in cash, or you finance it. As soon as you finance it, obviously you're upside down, right? You can't sell it for what you just paid for it, and you can't pay off your loan by selling it. that's what's meant by upside down. But anyway, you get an idea of the fact that there's price indexes or price indices for like everything. Okay? So just I'm not going to go over too much of this, but I do want to hit this one or two. And we can start with the reasons why inflation is bad. And I'm going to go another maybe 10 minutes and then we're going to get quiz. 8 minutes actually. So if I keep going after that, just yell at me. All right, so here's the thing. Okay, there are a bunch of reasons why inflation is bad. The first one is going to be decreasing purchasing power. And purchasing power is just what you can buy with your money. What does your money buy? It just measures that. What you can buy with your money. Okay, so that's the problem here is that we have prices are going up, and unless wages go up, then we're kind of stuck. All right, so let's say that you get you have two different components of this. This is called the real wage, and the real wage is like what you can buy with your money. Okay, so if I could do, let's just say that I have $100, all right, and that's my real wage, and my price of movies is $10. Okay, so that means that I can my real wage is that I can go to 10 movies. That's how you can interpret this. So it's what I can buy with my money. So my $100 is buying me 10 movies. But what if, so this top part here is the wage rate, and the bottom part is the prices. So the wage rate is 100, and the prices of that item is 10. So W over P is the real wage. It's the wages over the prices, and what it measures is what we're buying in actual product. Not how much money we're making, but what product does this money get us. So if I just say, all right, well, prices go up to $20. So we have prices of the movies go up to $20. So in this case, the prices went up, while the wage, the nominal wage that's called, right? W is called the nominal wage, it's just your actual money. And that stayed the same. So in my example here, your nominal wage stayed the same, but the prices went up. And what happened to your purchasing power? It went down. Now you can only go to 5 movies. So did your wage rate decrease? No. It stayed the same. But what happened is that prices went up, so it made you buy less or purchase less. So your purchasing power went down when the prices went up. And that's what happens with inflation. It causes prices to go up, and unless your wages go up to equal this, then you're going to lose. So what would wages have had to go up by to stay even here?
100%.
Yeah, they'd have to go up by 100% too, so they'd have to go up to 200, right? So if you had wages and prices both go up the same amount, then you'd be even. So what happens is you have wages over prices. So if this goes up by 5% and this goes up by 6%, then if that goes up by more than that, then what happens in this case? What happens to real wages? What happens in this example to real wages? They go up or down? Down, because prices went up by more than wages. So real wages go down. So you're worse off. So if you get a 5% raise and prices go up by 6%, then you lost. So this was so what happened in 2009 is we actually had deflation. We actually had prices go down a little bit. And of course at Winthrop we don't get raises, right? I haven't gotten a raise in at least 11 years.
Well, tuition doesn't go down either, so there's
Well,
always cash.
that's right. So I was actually better off that year, feeling pretty proud because prices went down even though I got zero raise, I'm feeling good about myself, right? Because my purchasing power went up, okay? And that was it. Ever since then, it's back to normal, but that's how it works, okay? So this goes up, so on a test, for instance, you might get a question that says, the wages went up by 8% and the prices went up by 6%, you know, what happened to real wage? And you just say, okay, well, if wages are higher than this, then that means real wage went up, and, you know, it means that, it means your purchasing power went up, so you're okay, you're better off, okay? All right, one more issue with this, okay, and then I'll close. This makes a big difference. With retired people, okay? Because what happens, you get these cost of living adjustments when you're on retirement. So in other words, Social Security will go up by a little bit. So what happens a lot of times is they'll give these called COLA, cost of living adjustments, and they'll go up by a certain amount. Let's say they go up by 2%. So your Social Security goes up by 2%. Well, what happens is if prices go up by 2%, then how well off is that person? Right? They're the same. So they keep thinking, oh, people keep getting raised, they're going to be better. And the second part of this is, what do older people spend some of their money on, more so proportionally than others? Healthcare. So what's happened is a lot of these cost of living adjustments are based on the inflation rate, but they basically these people are just breaking even. And in fact, they're losing a lot of times because the money that, because what they're spending their money on is actually, it ends up being, so really what their prices are higher than 2% because they're spending their money on medical supplies, medical prescriptions, etc. Okay?